The house felt different that morning, as if it too had sensed the seismic shift in our lives. Emily, our youngest, had left for college just the day before, her car packed to the brim, excitement radiating from her as she set off to carve her own path. Safia and I stood at the threshold, waving until her car was just a speck on the horizon. We turned to face our home, its walls echoing with memories, now silent. I found Safia later that evening, curled up on the couch, the remnants of the day's emotions etched on her face. The TV was on, casting flickering shadows across the room, but I could tell she wasn't watching. She was somewhere far away, lost in thought. "Hey," I said softly, taking a seat beside her. She looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's just us now," she whispered, a fragile smile gracing her lips. "Yeah, just us," I echoed, wrapping an arm around her. The weight of what that meant settled between us, a mix of freedom and loss. "Do you remember when we used to dream about this moment? All the things we said we'd do once the kids were off." Sophia laughed, a sound that filled the room with warmth. "We were going to travel the world, weren't we? Paris, Tokyo. And now, sitting on this couch feels like an adventure." I squeezed her hand, the familiarity of her skin against mine a comfort. "We still can, you know. The world's not going anywhere." She leaned her head on my shoulder, her sigh a mixture of contentment and longing. "I know. It's just, I didn't expect the house to feel this empty." The silence that followed was a testament to what we both felt. Our home, once filled with a constant buzz of activity, felt hollow. The laughter, the arguments, the endless cycle of daily chaos had given way to a quiet we weren't prepared for. "It's like we're back at the beginning, isn't it?" Safia finally said, breaking the silence. "Just you and me." I nodded, the reality of her words sinking in. "It is. But this time, we have a lifetime of memories to keep us company. And hey, we get to make new ones, just the two of us." Sophia looked up at me, a spark of something I hadn't seen in a while flickering in her eyes. "Do you think we could really do it? Start over in a way?" "Absolutely," I replied without hesitation. "We've spent years focusing on being parents. Maybe it's time we rediscover what it means to be Daniel and Safia, not just mom and dad." A smile, genuine and hopeful, spread across her face. "I'd like that," she said, her voice stronger now. "But where do we even start?" I thought for a moment, the possibilities endless. "How about we start by not cooking dinner tonight? Let's go out, just the two of us. Like a date." Sophia's laughter rang through the house, a sound that pushed away some of the silence. "A date, huh? I think I can manage that." As we stood, ready to step out into the world as just Daniel and Safia again, I realized this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, a chance to find new adventures and maybe, in the process, rediscover each other. The silent echo of our empty nest wouldn't be a void, but a canvas, waiting for us to fill it with the next chapter of our lives. The restaurant we chose was one of those cozy, dimly lit places that seemed to encourage intimate conversations and lingering glances. It was the perfect setting for what felt like our first date in decades. Sitting across from Safia, I was struck by how beautiful she looked under the soft glow of the candlelight, her eyes reflecting a mix of excitement and nervousness. As we sipped on wine and shared a meal, the conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on memories, dreams we had shelved, and the quiet that now filled our home. It was during dessert, as Safia played with a spoon in her hand, that the atmosphere shifted from light-hearted reminiscence to something deeper. "Safia," I prompted gently, noting the change. "What's on your mind?" She looked up, her gaze meeting mine. "Do you ever think about what it would be like to have another child?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, as if she was afraid to give the words too much weight. The question took me by surprise, not because the thought hadn't crossed my mind, but because of the timing. Yes, I've thought about it. But I always figured that chapter of our lives was closed." Sophia nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "I thought so too. But now, with the house so empty, I can't help but wonder if we're really done. If maybe, just maybe, there's room for one more adventure. The earnestness in her voice, the hopeful glint in her eyes, it stirred something within me. The idea of starting over, of late-night feedings and first steps, was daunting, yet the thought of sharing those moments with Safia filled me with an inexplicable warmth. "Safia, that's a huge step," I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "But if you're serious, if this is something you truly want, then I'm in. We've navigated every adventure together so far. Why not this one?" A smile, radiant and full of hope, spread across her face. "Really? You'd want to do this, even now, at our age?" I laughed, the sound mingling with the soft music in the background. Our age hasn't stopped us from doing anything else we've set our minds to. Besides, I can't think of anyone else I'd rather embark on this adventure with. Sophia squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "Oh, Daniel, this could be our chance to fill the house with laughter again, to give love to another child. I know it won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is." As we left the restaurant, hand in hand, the night air felt charged with possibility. The conversation we had sparked a flame of hope, casting a new light on our future. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and unknowns, but as Safia leaned her head on my shoulder, I knew we were ready to face whatever came our way, together. Our hearts whispered dreams of a new beginning, and in that moment we listened, letting the silent echo of our home guide us toward a future we hadn't dared to imagine before. The weeks following our dinner date were filled with conversations, research, and visits to various specialists. The idea of adding to our family, once a mere whisper of a thought, had taken root and was growing into a tangible possibility. However, it was during these preparations that Safia and I encountered a reality we hadn't fully anticipated: the challenges of conceiving at our age. One evening, after a particularly disheartening appointment, we found ourselves sitting on our porch, the sunset painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The air was filled with the scent of jasmine from the garden, a gentle reminder of the cycles of growth and renewal. Sophia broke the silence, her voice tinged with frustration. I knew this wouldn't be easy, but I didn't expect it to feel so impossible. Maybe this is a sign that we're trying to force something that isn't meant to be. I reached for her hand, feeling the weight of her disappointment. "Hey, we knew this journey would have its hurdles. But remember, we decided to explore this path together, no matter where it leads. This is just one of those moments where we need to lean on each other a little more." She leaned her head on my shoulder, a heavy sigh escaping her. "I know, but I can't help feeling like maybe we're being selfish, wanting to start all over again. There are so many children out there in need of a loving home. Maybe our focus should be on helping one of them, instead of trying to create a new life." The thought had crossed my mind as well, the possibility of opening our home and hearts to a child already in the world, waiting for a family. "Safia, that's a beautiful idea. Adoption could be our way of reigniting the flame, not just in our home, but in our hearts. It's a different path than we initially imagined, but it could be the journey we were meant to take." Sophia sat up, turning to face me, her eyes searching mine. "Do you really think we could do it? Become parents again, but this way?" I nodded, feeling a surge of certainty. "I do. It's not about the biology, Safia. It's about the love we have to give. And I can't think of a more beautiful way to share that love than by providing a child with a family." A smile slowly spread across Safia's face, the first genuine smile I'd seen since we started down this path. "You're right. This could be our chance to make a real difference, to give a child a home and the love they deserve. I feel like this is what we were being led to all along." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in a soft twilight, Safia and I talked about the future with a renewed sense of purpose. We discussed adoption agencies, the process, and the children waiting for families. The flame that had flickered uncertainly in our hearts was now burning brightly, guiding us toward a new adventure. That night, as we lay in bed, Safia whispered, "Thank you for being open to this, for reigniting the flame when I felt it was about to go out. I love you." I pulled her close, the warmth of her body a comforting presence. I love you too, Safia. We're in this together, no matter what. Here's to new beginnings and the journey ahead. The decision to pursue adoption marked the start of a new chapter in our lives, one filled with hope, challenges, and the promise of love. The silent echo of our home was about to be filled with laughter and joy once again, and Safia and I were ready to embrace whatever came our way, together. The process of adoption proved to be a labyrinth of paperwork, interviews, and endless waiting. Each step forward was met with a period of silence that stretched our patience and tested our resolve. Safia and I found ourselves caught in a cycle of hopeful anticipation and anxious uncertainty, a state that became our new normal. One evening, as we sat in our living room surrounded by stacks of forms and guides on adoption, Safia looked over at me with weary eyes. Daniel, do you ever think about what it'll be like once we're through all this, when we finally have a child running around this house? I put down the paperwork I was reading, giving her my full attention. Every day, I admitted, allowing myself a small smile at the thought. I imagine teaching them to ride a bike out in the driveway or reading bedtime stories until they fall asleep. It feels so close yet so far away. Sophia returned the smile, a spark of excitement in her eyes. I dream about the little moments, like baking cookies on a rainy day or comforting them after a bad dream. It's those everyday things I can't wait to share with them. Our conversations often drifted to the life we envisioned, a coping mechanism against the backdrop of uncertainty. It was during one of our routine visits to the agency when we met with our caseworker, Helen, that the emotional toll of the waiting game became apparent. Helen greeted us with a sympathetic smile as we sat down in her office. I know this process can be incredibly challenging, she began, her voice gentle. But I want to reassure you both that your patience and resilience during this time hasn't gone unnoticed. We're doing everything we can to match you with the right child. Sophia clasped my hand tightly under the table, her anxiety palpable. It's just hard, Helen. Every day feels like a year. We're ready to provide a loving home now, and yet it feels like we're stuck in limbo. Helen nodded, understanding. I completely understand. It's a common feeling among prospective parents. But I promise, the right match will come, and when it does, all this waiting will have been worth it. In the meantime, I encourage you to keep preparing, keep dreaming, and most importantly, keep supporting each other. As we left the agency that day, Safia seemed contemplative, her earlier enthusiasm dampened by the reality of our situation. That night, as we lay in bed, she turned to me, her voice soft in the darkness. Do you think we're doing the right thing, Daniel? Putting ourselves through all this? I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. I do, Safia. I know it's hard, and some days are tougher than others, but I believe in us. I believe in the family we're going to be. This waiting, as painful as it is just a part of our journey. Sophia sighed, leaning into my embrace. You're right. It's just hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel sometimes, but I'm glad we're on this journey together. We'll get there, I assured her, kissing the top of her head. And when we do, all of this will be a distant memory. We'll be too busy making new ones with our child. The waiting game continued, each day a test of faith and patience. But Safia and I held on to each other, finding strength in our shared dream of the family we were so eager to become. Our love, a constant in the uncertainty, kept the flame of hope alive as we navigated the unpredictable road of adoption together. The journey of adoption is fraught with emotional highs and lows, a truth Safia and I came to understand intimately. As the months turned into a year, the strain of the waiting game began to wear on us, not just as individuals, but as a couple. Our once optimistic conversations about the future slowly shifted towards discussions filled with doubt and fear. It was on a particularly challenging evening, after receiving yet another update that there were no matches for us, that the weight of our situation finally came to a head. The house felt unusually cold, a reflection of the growing distance between us. Safia was sitting at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly flipping through a magazine when I walked in. Her eyes, usually so full of warmth, seemed distant. Another couple we know just announced they're adopting, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's happening for everyone else. Why not us? I pulled out a chair and sat beside her, the frustration and sadness I felt mirroring her own. I don't know, Safia. I wish I had the answers. It feels like we're being tested in ways I never imagined. She closed the magazine and turned to face me, her expression a mix of sorrow and resolve. Daniel, are we fooling ourselves? What if we're not meant to be parents again? Maybe we're ignoring the signs that this path isn't for us. Her words stung, not because I hadn't thought them myself, but because hearing them out loud made the fear all the more real. I've been scared too, I admitted, reaching for her hand. But giving up now, letting go of this dream, I'm afraid I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Aren't you? Sophia nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. Of course I am. I'm terrified of regretting what we didn't do, what we didn't fight for. But I'm equally scared of this endless waiting, of hoping for something that might never happen. We sat in silence, the magnitude of our fears laid bare between us. It was a crossroads moment, one that could either divide us or draw us closer. I chose the latter. Let's face these fears together, I said, squeezing her hand. We jumped into this journey because we believed our family wasn't complete yet. That belief hasn't changed for me. Has it for you? Sophia shook her head, a determined look replacing the fear. No, it hasn't. I want this as much as you do. I want us to be parents again, to share our love with a child who needs it. Encouraged by her words, I proposed an idea. What if we take a step back and reassess our approach? Maybe there's another path to parenthood we haven't considered. Let's not give up, but let's also be open to where this journey might take us. Sophia considered this, a spark of hope reigniting in her eyes. I like that idea. Facing our fears doesn't mean we have to stick to the plan we initially made. It means being brave enough to explore every possibility. That night, Safia and I made a pact to face our fears head-on, together. We agreed to remain open to all avenues of becoming parents again, whether through adoption, fostering, or even exploring medical interventions we hadn't considered before. Our journey was far from over, but we were reminded that as long as we had each other, we could face any challenge that came our way. The conversation in the kitchen marked a turning point for us. It didn't erase the fears, but it gave us a new direction and renewed our strength. We were no longer two individuals struggling with our doubts, but a united front, ready to face whatever our journey had in store for us. In the days that followed our late-night conversation in the kitchen, Safia and I began to explore every conceivable option that could lead us to parenthood. Our research took us down paths we had previously overlooked or dismissed, each possibility a beacon of hope in the vast uncertainty that had become our quest to expand our family. One crisp autumn evening, as we sat side by side on our couch, our laptop open to a forum for prospective parents, Safia turned to me with a look of cautious optimism. "What about surrogacy?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of hope and hesitation. "We haven't really considered it before." I paused, considering the suggestion. Surrogacy was a road we hadn't ventured down, partly due to our initial focus on adoption. "It's definitely worth exploring," I replied, feeling a flicker of excitement at the prospect of a new direction. "Let's look into it, find out everything we can." As we delved into the world of surrogacy, we discovered a community of individuals and professionals dedicated to helping people achieve their dreams of parenthood. The more we learned, the more it felt like a viable option for us. It wasn't long before we found ourselves sitting in the office of a surrogacy agency, our hearts full of hope, as we spoke with a coordinator named Lisa. Lisa greeted us with a warm smile, her demeanor immediately putting us at ease. "I'm glad you're considering surrogacy as a path to parenthood," she began, her voice reassuring. "It's a journey filled with its own set of challenges, but also immense joy. Tell me, what has brought you to this point?" Safia and I shared our story, speaking of our struggles and the emotional toll of the waiting game. Lisa listened intently, nodding in understanding. "Your journey is unique, but the feelings you're experiencing are not uncommon. Surrogacy is a beautiful option that has brought many families together. It's about creating connections and building relationships that last a lifetime. The conversation flowed naturally, and for the first time in a long while, Safia and I felt a sense of direction. When Lisa described the process, from matching with a surrogate to the legal and emotional considerations, we hung on to every word, envisioning the possibilities. As we left the agency that day, Safia squeezed my hand, her eyes bright with renewed hope. "This could be it, Daniel. It feels right, doesn't it?" "It does," I agreed, the weight of our previous uncertainties lifting ever so slightly. "I'm scared, excited, and everything in between. But I'm glad we're exploring this together." In the weeks that followed, Safia and I embarked on the surrogacy journey with cautious optimism. We attended meetings, consulted with legal advisors, and met with potential surrogates. Each step forward was a testament to our resilience and the strength of our commitment to becoming parents once more. One evening, after meeting with a surrogate who felt like the perfect match for us, Safia and I sat quietly in our car, overwhelmed by the emotion of the moment. "Can you believe this is happening?" Safia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I reached for her hand, feeling the connection that went beyond words. "I can," I replied, my heart full of gratitude. "Because we didn't give up, even when it felt impossible. We're going to be parents again, Safia. We're on our way." The decision to pursue surrogacy marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. It was a path fraught with its own challenges and uncertainties, but it was our path, a journey we chose together, fueled by love and the unwavering belief in the family we longed to build. As the surrogacy process slowly unfolded, Safia and I found ourselves in a state of cautious anticipation. We had been matched with a surrogate, Emily, whose warmth and understanding had immediately put us at ease. Yet, as anyone on this journey knows, the path to parenthood is never guaranteed. We were learning to balance hope with the reality of the many steps still ahead of us. One unassuming Tuesday afternoon, as the autumn leaves painted the world in hues of gold and crimson, our lives were forever altered by a single phone call. I was in the middle of a work meeting when my phone vibrated silently against the conference table. Glancing down, I saw Safia's name flashing on the screen. Excusing myself, I stepped out into the hallway, my heart racing with anticipation. "Daniel." Safia's voice was a mix of disbelief and excitement. "You need to come home. Now." "What's happened?" I asked, already moving towards the exit. "Is everything okay?" "Just come home, please. It's something good." "Something really good," she assured me, her voice trembling with emotion. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing with possibilities. When I finally arrived, I found Safia in the living room, an envelope clutched in her hands. Her eyes met mine, shining with tears. "We got a call from the adoption agency," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's a baby, Daniel. A baby girl. They asked if we're still interested in adopting." I stood there, stunned into silence. After all the heartache, the waiting, and the uncertainty, this news felt like a dream. "Are you serious?" was all I could manage, my own voice choked with emotion. Safia nodded, her smile wide and tearful. "I'm serious. They said it happened very suddenly. A birth mother chose us, and she's due in just a few weeks. They wanted to know if we're still open to adoption." The room spun around me as the reality of her words sank in. We had ventured down the path of surrogacy, never expecting the world of adoption to open its doors to us again. Yet here we were, standing on the threshold of a moment we'd had dreamed of for so long. "What did you say?" I asked, taking a step closer. "I said we needed to talk about it. But Daniel," Safia's voice broke with emotion, "this is our chance. Our chance to be parents again." I reached for her, pulling her into an embrace that spoke volumes of the journey we had endured together. "Let's do it," I whispered, feeling her nod against my chest. "Let's bring our baby girl home." The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. We met with the adoption agency, filled out the necessary paperwork, and prepared our home for the arrival of our daughter. Each step was taken with a sense of surreal anticipation, a mixture of joy and disbelief coloring our every action. One evening, as we sat together in what would soon be our daughter's nursery, Sophia looked at me with a smile that lit up the room. "Can you believe this is happening?" she asked, her hand resting on the crib. "I can," I replied, taking her hand in mine. "Because no matter how difficult the journey, we never gave up hope. We're going to be parents again, Sophia. Our family is finally complete." The call that changed everything came at a moment we least expected it, a testament to the unpredictable nature of life. It reminded us that sometimes the path to our dreams leads us through unexpected doors. And when it does, the destination is all the more beautiful for the journey that brought us there.